I'd see one of them sooner or later. Well, here we are, we're still stuck on the side of the road. And I tried to look it up, the information on BC highways, and it looks like we got about a 13-kilometer traffic jam in front of us. And we haven't moved in a while, and probably won't move for a while yet, so we might be pitching the tent here tonight. So I'm just passing through the town of Lumley right now. And the next town on this road is Cherryville, and to me, that's where this highway kind of starts for me. And between Cherryville and Needles Ferry, it's such a beautiful road to ride. And it's not extreme, but I really enjoy this road. And once we get to Needles, the Needles Ferry, I'm going to talk a little bit about the area of Needles. Anyhow, let's just enjoy the ride in the meantime. Got the road to yourself. So this is like BC's version of the Needles Highway, and it's nothing like the one in South Dakota. The one in South Dakota is so awesome with all the switchbacks going up and down the hill and those rock formations that go straight up. It's just beautiful. But for a long time, to me, this was the Needles Highway. And I love the sweeping turns. And none of them are really radical, like where you have to slow down to 15 miles an hour or nothing. There's a couple of them. But it's such an easy, relaxing ride, and it's not very busy very often. So I thought I'd show you guys BC's version of the Needles Highway. Now, nowhere it's officially called that. This is just what I knew it as. This is actually the Slocan to Vernon Highway, highway number 6. But I still call it the Needles Highway. Leave it up to me to always be different. Anyhow, once I get to the Needles Ferry, I'll tell you the history of why this area is called the Needles. And I'm going to try to find a landmark, the only place that's left from the original days of the Needles, and that's the Needles Cemetery. And as far as I know, it's still here, but everything else is wiped out. Okay, we'll catch up to you pretty soon. There's a black bear. We don't see them very often here. And they're so skittish. They're so skittish that they run off pretty quick. What we're going to do is I'm going to try to find the last piece of the old Needles community, which is the cemetery. And there's the ferry straight ahead of us, the Needles Ferry. But there's a place around here. I'm going to have to look it up and find out. I know it's to the right somewhere. So this area here where I pulled over, and it's a good overlook of the area called the Needles. Now in the late 1800s, there was actually a post office on this side, and it was the Fire Valley Post Office. But the post office officially changed its name to the Needles Post Office in 1908. And the name came from Needles. If you see behind me, there's kind of a jetty that goes out into the lake there. When it was a lot lower, there was lots of sand spits that went out into the lake, and they look like needles, and that's where it came from. Now, the area became official in 1908. It was the Needles, with the post office name changed from Fire Valley to the Needles. And this community stayed here all the way until the 1960s. Then in the 60s, there was a dam built, and it was called the High Arrow Dam. And it's called something else now. It's called let me look it up here. Hugh Keenley Side Dam. Anyway, I think High Arrow Dam is easier to remember. Anyhow, when that dam was built in the 60s, this whole area was flooded. Now, when this area was flooded, the Needles community went away. It was all gone. And the only thing left that was above the flood line is the cemetery that's behind me here. Now, they never got rid of the name for the ferry behind me of the Needles Ferry. So that's why it's still on the map, even though the community's not here anymore. So let's go take a look at the cemetery. So here it is. The Needles Cemetery. So it's now a protected area, and it's the only thing left behind from the old community. And there we go. Anyhow, let's go jump on the ferry. Thank you. Well, it kind of looks like I might get a little bit wet. Well, every trip has got to rain on you somewhere. To me, that doesn't look normal. Not sure what's going on. You could feel the heat of that. I knew I'd see one of them sooner or later. So wouldn't you know it, here I am in New Denver, and I bumped into a buddy of mine, an old riding buddy of mine from Alberta, and we bumped into each other at the liquor store. You never would have guessed. So now I know where I'm going to camp tonight. And we'll have a good time to catch up. So the guys in front of me, that's the group that he's riding with. This road that we're going across, New Denver to Caslow, I absolutely love this road. It's probably in my top 5 in BC. It's Highway 31A, but I'm going to do a separate video on that. So here we are coming into Toad Rock Campground. And it's a motorcycle only campground, but I've never been here before. So this will be a new experience for me.
Ride then?
Yeah, I always like that one.
Yeah.